Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. My name is liberal arts major, and today I want to talk about a TV show, The Good Place, the third season of which just ended. Two notes before we get started. One, there will be general spoilers for the series, though individual character developments like those in the season 3 finale that brought me to literal tears will not be specifically discussed. Two, I spend more time here looking at the questions that The Good Place has dedicated its 39 chapters thus far to exploring than I do talking about why the show is worth such a deep level of consideration in the first place. So if you are looking for that and aren't even slightly interested in Alec Kubas-Meyer's theories of anything, now's a good time to click away. Just know that I'm sorry it didn't work out, and I will miss you immensely. They gone? Okay. I grew up going to a Unitarian Universalist church in Providence, Rhode Island, and I now go to one on and off in New York City. It was actually in that church that I decided to start this YouTube channel. Like many people at UU services, I do not believe in God or an afterlife. It is a religion without a creed, just 7 core principles. The Good Place feels pretty UU. In it, no earthly religion was right, and all of them were wrong. There is no God deity watching over benevolently or maliciously. To the extent that any eternal beings are watching, it is with detached amusement. Some of them enjoy humanity's TV shows, but humans? Meh. In The Good Place, a person is judged by math, clinically, cruelly objective arbiter that people feel it to be. Every action a person takes over the course of their lives is given a numerical value by impartial accountants in a neutral zone. Hold the door for someone, get a few points. Write a mean comment on a YouTube video, and lose a lot of them. No. After a person dies, that sum total must reach a certain threshold. If it does, they go to the good place. If not, off to the bad place. Now, the rules as presented in Season 1 are not quite the same as they are in Season 3, and late revelations make the presence of Mindy St. Clair's medium place seem to break the show's internal logic, but rules change and shows evolve, and ultimately the changes here were for the better, so whatever. Had I not binged the entire thing over the course of 4 days last week, I likely wouldn't have even considered that, so. Critically, these counts are weighted by intent. My girlfriend, who was raised Catholic, told me about a sermon her pastor once gave concerning good deeds, wherein he mentioned atheists, specifically the fact that atheists have a purity of intent that no one who believes in an afterlife can have. If an irreligious person does something good, it must be because they feel compelled to do good, not because they are concerned about eternal damnation. This, of course, is an oversimplification and not really correct. Tahani, for example, raised billions of dollars for charity, but not because she cared about the causes so much as the fact that she could raise a lot of money for charity. Her religious beliefs, or lack thereof, no one in The Good Place has a clear religion, play no part in the selfishness of her motivations. But the pastor's broader point is something I have spent a fair amount of time thinking about. For example, when people say that atheists are incapable of morality, therefore admitting that they think the only reason to be moral is to avoid endless punishment, which says so much more about their fundamental values than it does about mine. Because I do consider myself a generally moral and ethical person. At least I do try to be. And that trying is not driven by what happens after I die, but by a fervent belief that not being awful will make the time we do all have generally more pleasant. But of course, trying to figure out what that even means can be exhausting. And who knows how to even gauge success on a small scale. We'll get to that. Within a few years, college seminars will teach The Good Place, but not as like a one-off class in a larger study of primary sources. No, its take on the philosophy of ethics and morality will be the focus of the curriculum. It's perfectly suited to this, as each season has seen the scope of its ethical explorations expand. First, it's narrowly focused on 4 individuals. Then it looks at how a group forms individuals using those same 4 and their captor turned compatriot as the case in point. And now it's blown the whole thing wide open as it attempts to reckon with humanity as a whole, particularly in 2016. Presumably, this next season will take that baton and run with it. This layered approach is perfect for pedagogy. To be honest, just watching The Good Place at all feels like it should get you a certification from Clemson X, a Clemson professor. That's the show. While season 1 gives some fundamentals and cute ways to incorporate moral thinking into your life, it's season 2 that really gets into it by offering more realistic and practical discussions. Well, it's not particularly realistic. I particularly enjoyed Chidi's forced attempts to solve the ethical conundrum that is the trolley problem, brought to life with all of the gore that a broadcast comedy can provide. This lays the groundwork for a more invigorating discussion later in the semester, one that those dumb college kids can bring to their dumb college parties while holding hands and drinking boxed wine or whatever it is they do. Season 3, particularly in its final episodes, is The Good Place at its most optimistic and metatextually pessimistic, verging on nihilistic. The revelation that the accounting system considers not just direct intent, but also the unintended repercussions of, say, the decision to buy some flowers for your grandmother, completely upends everything, destroying any hope anyone could have of being good. This is a dark timeline indeed, but the show rejects that conclusion while also speaking to a larger real-world concern for anyone who would really like to be ethical. When the judge goes down to earth and sees how impossible it is to know if the profits from a tomato are actually funding dictatorships while the system continues to knock them for doing just that, her feelings change. The bar lowers because it has to. They all see this as an opportunity to alter the way their society values, in a literal sense, goodness, to one that more closely aligns with the way that most actual humans do. They believe that in a vacuum, represented metaphorically by a deliberately constructed afterlife, even not so good people have the ability and desire to be good. That the reason people are not so good is because life is bad, and taking life away and adding a basic curriculum on morality and ethics to the proceedings will result in a better class of people. But where does this stop? Because taken at face value, this bar lowering makes the case that taking steps to mitigate one's adverse side effects has no real value, and I don't think that's right. But of course, nothing is simple. To go way too deep into an example from the show, let's take almonds. In these future courses, there will be an entire session dedicated to almonds. When Chidi is given the initial revelation that he is in the bad place, he leaps to the very wrong but hilarious conclusion that it is a result of his decision to ingest almonds despite their environmental impact. This reminded me of an obnoxious gotcha that I have seen thrown at folks who decided to replace dairy with the cheapest and most accessible nut-based alternative, almond milk beverage. It goes kind of like this. Hey loser who cares about your environmental impact,
Did you know that almonds use an outsized amount of water in the
already drought-stricken California farms?
But it is true that a single almond takes a heck of a lot of water to produce, though dairy milk uses so much more, and then you have all of the other environmental impacts beyond just water use that come from dairy farming. Of course, dairy has far more nutritional benefit than almond milk. Soy milk comes closer, but none of the alt milks can match it. These are all side effects of a question that The Good Place would find fundamentally irrelevant. What should I use to make my cereal less dry? But that's not a good way to think about it, and the math will inevitably fail it, which is where the philosophy comes in. Because these questions being complicated doesn't mean they should just be ignored. In the past few years, I have radically changed certain things about how I shop and eat and etc. in order to reduce various negative impacts of my lifestyle on like the environment or whatever, but it is also true that I am not, for example, vegan or even vegetarian, though I guess I'm sort of closer than not at this point. But does knowing that factory farming is genuinely horrific while still eating meat with every meal mean someone is bad? Yeah, probably. Does me knowing that, but still having it periodically mean I am? Yeah, sure. Chickens suffer far more than cows, but have much less environmental impact. So how do you weigh those against each other? Trick question. We should probably all be vegan. But then there's the rub that no single person's decisions mean a damn thing. My choice to eat and or shop differently doesn't affect anyone's anything. It just makes me feel like I'm a better person than people who don't do those things, despite the fact that what I do inevitably has myriad problems of its own. Non-GMO food is bad as heck for the environment, and we need to stop lionizing it based on junk science by making any snack food that's low in sugar also high in pretension. Everything becomes about trade-offs, but no two people will see the trade in the same way. And Season 3's brief digression, seeing the life of the only man who ever figured out how he would be judged and adjusted his behavior to match, shows an awful and miserable life that is still not enough. Look, if there were a good place, then an average of 80-something years of general unhappiness caused by as purely moral a life as possible is probably worth it for an eternity of bliss. But when there isn't a good place, or any other place, and this is all we've got, how much sacrifice is it even fair to ask someone to make? And fairness is as fundamental a philosophical problem as we've got, now mixed with the literal worth of a pleasant life against all the bad things that must exist in order to make that life possible. To follow that nightmarish spiral results in nothing less than you staring at two hats for 80 minutes trying to understand the moral repercussions of a wrong selection. And that's why everyone hates philosophy professors. Haha, show references. This is a review. I spent a lot of the nearly 900 minutes of The Good Place laughing. A whole lot of them just sort of feeling, with the last few minutes straight up crying. But in all of that, I was thinking. I was thinking about my own morals and ethics, about the life I have lived and the plan I have to keep this whole thing going. But when the credits rolled on Season 3, I didn't stop thinking. And that's the sign of something truly special. That this star-studded but unassuming fantasy comedy on NBC has pushed me to wrestle with these fundamental questions. I'm not sure what answers I'm going to find on the other end, but I'm grateful for the show that got the gears turning. 9.1 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. This video is a pretty big milestone, actually. It is the 26th week of the week I review, meaning I've been doing this for half a year, which is pretty crazy. If you like this video, that's awesome. If not, I'm sorry. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I hope to see you next week.